Hello, this is Alan G. Davison, and it's been a little while, but I've decided to come out of retirement. I'm not really old enough to be retired in any sense of the word. Anyway, moving on. I've decided to actually do a little bit more on just, things that you should keep in mind if you ever decide to write your own stories, big, small, fan fiction, your own original ideas, and just little things that I would really recommend doing. And today's topic is one that I have found myself actually doing. So I might actually have a little bit of reason to actually preach. Well, a little bit of a reason. I'm trying to be comical. Yet, just ignore me. Anyway, well, don't ignore me. That'd be kind of bad. That'd be kind of stupid. Anyway, moving on. Is to have way too many characters in your story. Now, you can never have too many side characters. Usually it keeps things interesting, keeps your cast diverse and stuff like that. But when you have too many characters at the forefront, it can get very confusing, very difficult to manage. Now, when I first created The Blessed, I was with the help of two friends. Now, mind you, they're not really involved anymore. One's over in Israel, and the other one, yeah, who knows where he's at. He just goes wherever he wants to. And the thing is that each and every single one of us wanted to have our own character in the story, which is who they are based off of. And then, of course, we have the main character. I wanted to have love interests. Then, of course, we had the villains, and then everybody sort of had their own little ideas. And so we had quite a few characters in the forefront, and I've sort of found myself realizing that even though it's a really decent-sized story, is that I don't really feel like I've had enough time in the original first book to really dynamicate everything. Nobody really got enough of a chance to bounce off each other. Nobody got to talk to each other. Nobody got to discuss things. I think a lot of people don't realize is that a story should kind of work like real life. Well, it's not going to be exactly like real life, but the people are people. It doesn't matter if it's fantasy, if it's sci-fi, it's romance. People shoot the shit, man. They talk to each other. They discuss things. They talk. It was always kind of one of my little pet peeves is that, nobody ever really came up with it. They didn't just talk. They didn't try to pass you travel around a lot and stuff like that. You're not going to just, walk in silence. You're going to talk about stuff. You're not going to, hey, let's go travel off to some yonder land and stuff. And let's do it in silence. Nobody talk. Damn, that would be so boring. And real people don't work that way. I mean, you go to work and people are talking to each other. I mean, you may not necessarily like the person, but you're still going to carry on some semblance of a conversation. You get bored if you just stand there at work waiting for people to show up. Well, that's kind of what the bosses would probably like, but, that's not usually how it works. Like I said, it'd get boring after a while. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because you look back at I look back at my first story, and then on some other stories. My fiance did this with hers. Is she's not like me. She doesn't want to become a renowned author. She's actually writing a story just for the sake of loving it, which I am. But I would really like to share my stories with a lot of people. I really want the world to actually read my books, and if I could do that while still being anonymous, that'd be great. But sadly, the world doesn't work like that anymore. Off topic. Anyway, she created a lot of characters, and I was kind of reading this, and she always did this other thing that is kind of a pet peeve of mine, is that she always gave her characters ridiculously unique names. And I like ridiculous names. It makes the character unique, but when everybody has them, it just doesn't work. And it's even worse is when there's a lot of them. She ended up having so many different characters, and I kind of looked at her while reading through the story, and I'm like, do these two people actually do anything throughout the course of the story? I mean, you just sort of have them in here, and she did something sort of like I did, and she had them based off of people, but she had them in. She had all these characters. I couldn't remember them. I couldn't keep them separated, and it turns out she could cut two of them out because she hadn't done anything with them at all throughout the course of the story, and she hadn't had anything really planned for them at all. Because, she sort of focused it on one single individual with some around her and stuff. But those two characters weren't even used. And I was kind of like... And then I've kind of realized later while looking at my own work is that I kind of, got a little preachy towards her when I'm pretty much guilty of the exact same thing. The only problem is I'm in an even worse situation is because I've literally built the characters in the world so dang well that I can't go back and edit anybody out without the sake of drastically rewriting the entire story. It's a good thing I've sort of planning on looking back on stuff like that, and even I have fallen victim to my own, preaching. But you really do need to be careful, and it's also why it's a good reason to plan your stories out in advance. Because if you got a lot of characters in there that don't really develop much or add much to the story, and don't really have a whole lot to do, then there's really no point in them being there to begin with. And I know some people probably who write have these really great characters and that are really good and really interesting and stuff like that, but if you can't really keep them active or interested in the overall plot, then maybe it's time to put them to a side or delegate a role or something like that, and just have them pop in and out of the story. Now, as for me, I ended up doing something a little bit different, is that afterwards I planned on like separating the group itself and just focusing in on like one or two people as the main focuses, and just delegating the other characters back down to side roles. So that way I don't end up having them too focused on all the different characters at once. Or you can pull a J.K. Rowling and just kill off the characters that you don't really think are all that vital or anything like that. I think I'm going to actually do that. Is actually going to do like a gripes list of all of the things that J.K. Rowling sort of did wrong. Don't get me wrong, she's a great author, but there's just some things that just don't work for me. Anyway, I regress. But like I said, that's a really important thing to deal with. Is that you got to make sure that you can manage your characters and you can manage them well. I ended up actually going back and writing a different story, and I purposely limited myself to a very few characters. Like, I had like a decent cast and stuff like that, but I managed to purposely peg down a specific number. Which is always a good thing, is to have everything at least semi-planned out, maybe paper, pen, or something like that. But always make sure that every single character you have serves some purpose or reason. Because if you do just keep them around for no apparent reason, it just gets weird, because real people don't work that way. People don't stand around, people don't do anything in the group. Almost everybody has something to add, even if it's just talking. Now, I really can't put a whole lot of emphasis on that and stuff, and I don't really have a whole lot of a hill to stand on. But, take my advice as you will, and if you, think I'm wrong or something like that, by all means, leave it in the comments, or if you agree, put it in the comments or whatever. Anyway, that's going to be all for today. That's Alan G. Davis signing off.